Dear friends, grace to you and peace from God, our Creator, and our risen Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ, in the power of the Holy Spirit. Amen. In 1994, Rwanda was in chaos. Tension between the two major ethnic groups, the Tutsi and the Hutu, had been boiling over for years. But on April 7th, all hell broke loose, literally. The day before, April 6th, a plane carrying President Juvenal Habyarimana and Burundian President Cyprien Ntaryamira was shot down as it landed in Kigali, the capital. It was taken to be an act of aggression by the Tutsi Rwandan Patriotic Front, which was a rebel force fighting the Hutu government, which was in the majority. The next day, April 7th, the Hutu began a campaign of horror as it slaughtered its Tutsi neighbors, friends, and in some cases, even family. There had always been a history of tension between these two groups. For hundreds of years, the Hutu were seen as the farmers and the servants of the ruling elite, the Tutsi, whose name literally means to herd cattle. The Hutu reign of terror in 1994 continued until the Tutsis took Kigali in mid-July. Perhaps the most horrific part of this story is that the rest of the world did nothing. Those of you that remember this and lived through this certainly know this history. But the rest of the civilized world looked away and tried to ignore this as though nothing was really happening, or it didn't really matter, or there really wasn't much they could have done anyway, while innocents were slaughtered in the thousands. No one knows exactly how many were killed during the Rwandan genocide, but estimates range from 500,000 to 1 million. And this over the course of merely a few months. It was overwhelmingly Hutu murdering Tutsi with guns, machetes, clubs, or just about any deadly object they could find. This traumatic period in Rwanda's history was followed by a prolonged civil war, but slowly, gradually, the country came through this period of unthinkable tragedy. Truth and Reconciliation Commissions allowed people to come forward and admit their complicity in the atrocities, to ask for forgiveness, and to try to find reconciliation as communities sought to heal and move forward. The church in Rwanda, and there is an active Lutheran church in Rwanda, played a role in this truth and reconciliation process. About 10 years after the bloodbath, American educator Robin Strickler, a Lutheran from our synod, visited Rwanda. She met and fell in love with Pastor John Rutindenswarne. It began to look around a country that had been rocked with tragedy, conflict, and war. In the city of Rwamagana, they came to realize that a school would be helpful. It would provide education to many children who were orphaned through the genocide or whose families lived in extreme poverty. There were extensive fundraising efforts, including, among other things, a 60-mile walk in Virginia. And there was help from other Lutherans who helped support in building infrastructure and developing educational programs. And eventually, land was purchased and ground was broken. In 2010, the Rwamagana Lutheran School built its first 4 rooms of their 10 classroom building. With many other supporting individuals and agencies, they continued to develop both their educational program and their building infrastructure. This is a true success story, I think, of mission-minded Lutherans addressing real needs in a part of the world desperate to hear a word of grace, reconciliation, and hope. At our Synod Assembly this past weekend, at which Pat and Richard, thank you for making it to church today, were at with me. One of the many presentations we heard was from Pastor John Rutindenswarne, a small, energetic African man who stood on the podium to say a heartfelt, and you could just feel a heartfeltness, thank you to all in this church, and especially in this synod, who had supported this effort of making this dream of a school a reality, and to acknowledge the support he had received from many members of our synod. Next to John stood a tall, young, lanky man with a mane of curly locks of hair. His name was Luke Hansen, and he is a recent grad of the Young Adults in Global Mission program that our church offers, a fantastic program, sometimes called YAGM. Luke, who led the Assembly Bible Study, told us how much his time in Rwanda had affected him and caused him to see the world in a different light and with fresh eyes. He also attested how different a country Rwanda has become, about how safe it is, something that the citizens who lived through 1994 will never again take for granted. 2015 was the first graduating class of Rwamagana Lutheran School, and in a video we saw many of the young adults who were finishing their school, their education, talk about dreams of their future in politics, in industry, in rebuilding their beloved homeland of Rwanda. And this was all a touching tribute to the hard work of a few visionary leaders in the church. In our gospel today from Luke 7, Jesus, on his way into the town of Nain, encounters a funeral party on its way to burying a boy who has died. The mother is a widow, which is a symbol of utter destitution and dependency in the Bible. Widows do not have husbands or sons. They may have sons, but other men in their life to support them. This mother is understandably distraught, grief-stricken over losing her one and only son. Not only the grief of the loss of one she had given birth to and nursed and tended to from a young age, but the very uncertain future she faces with no means of income is at play. Jesus has compassion on her and the other mourners and raises the boy simply by touching the bier of the casket, which causes quite a stir, as you might imagine. Those who witness this scene are seized by fear, we're told, and recognize that a great prophet is in their midst. Word gets out in the surrounding region of this great act of compassion. And a few verses after this gospel text, we read that John the Baptizer, the one who had predicted the Messiah, the one who was to come, wonders if Jesus is he. He sends a few followers to ask, "Are you the one who is to come, or are we to wait for another?" Jesus answers like this, "Go and tell John what you have seen and heard. The blind receive their sight, the lame walk, lepers are cleansed, the deaf hear, the dead are raised, the poor have good news brought to them, and blessed is anyone who takes no offense at me." The Messianic age, Jesus tells us, is a time of healing, renewal, good news, and hope. When we see these acts of healing and wholeness, we see the Messiah. When we see reconciliation between the people of a war-torn country, or those who live in conflict and misunderstanding because of racial injustice, or gender identity, or religious intolerance, when we see reconciliation in these matters, we see the Messiah. What do your eyes see? The question of Jesus' messiahship is not a theoretical one. It's not merely a theological debate. Something happens when we see healing and wholeness. Jesus is there. When we do not see those things, we do not. It's easy for us to take for granted those things that happen around us every day, including in the church. Synod assemblies, I'm on number 15 this year, can start to feel pretty routine and mundane, but once in a while something cuts through the mundane and the routine and the everyday and so forth and touches your heart. And the visit from Pastor John from Rwanda was one such moment for me. We also had a visit from our presiding bishop, Elizabeth Eaton, who was wonderful and witty and grounded and relevant. Elected in 2013, Bishop Eaton is the first woman in Lutheran history to hold such a high post in the church. Our theme for the whole assembly was "We Are Church Together," which is one of her 4 key emphases for our Lutheran Church in America. She did a fantastic presentation, very simple, keeping it simple about how she kind of organizes her work. We are church, she says. We are Lutheran. We are church together, which was our theme this year. And we are church for the sake of the world. This is her lens. She's always kind of looking at what she does and what the whole ELCA is about, how congregations and agencies, institutions, and ministries function. It's important, I think, at least once in a while, to stop and see the good that our church does, that you and I do, in and through our relationship with the Synod and the ELCA church-wide, which is the national church body. There was one, she really is funny too, actually, so I really enjoyed listening to her. At one poignant moment during a Q&A, Bishop Eaton talked about complaints she hears about the ELCA, or the church-wide, mostly around money. He gets this question all the time. What value does the ELCA bring to a local congregation in its work? Why should churches send their money to church-wide? You know, it's like sending it over the Alps, never to be seen again. It's a fair question, I suppose, but the answer, she said, lies not in what they can do for us, but in what we can do together. For example, supporting Rwamagana Lutheran School in Rwanda is one such example of how the church, together, can do so much more of God's work than any one congregation could ever do on its own. It is a small piece in a much larger puzzle that is the work and ministry of our church, which lives in and through Jesus Christ. It is not merely local or even national, but global. We reach beyond our own borders, whatever those borders may be, to be Christ's hands and feet for a needy world. And as Christ himself said, wherever the blind receive their sight, the lame walk, the lepers are cleansed, the deaf hear, the dead are raised, and the poor have good news brought to them. There is Jesus.